Welcome back, everyone, to the Queen of TV channel. Now, some quick things first before we get into our intro. First, yes, I am fully aware that this is coming out late. That is because I got sidetracked and fell asleep. Second, I would like to again welcome my two new subscribers. And lastly, there will be cursing and profanity. So, without further ado, let's get into our intro. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, the Queen herself, and you are the Prince of Princesses. You're either a subscriber or you are a viewer. Either way, welcome. Today, I'm going to be talking about why I love Lewis McCartney from H2O Seasons 1 and 2. And like with all the other people that we talked about, we will be discussing the character development, the personality, the story outside of others, behaviors, relationships, and if his style reflects his character. Now, on the last part, unfortunately, he wasn't a part of the H2O video. According to the video, it is about Cleo, Emma, and Ricky and Bella's clothing style. He's not the only character that wasn't in that video. It was also Zane, Kim, Miriam, Charlotte, Nate, Sophie, and Will. They also were not a part of that video. Because by popularity standards, the fandom only cares about the styling from the mermaids themselves, not necessarily every single character on there. So I'll just be talking about the color palette that I've noticed on him. So without further ado, let's get into the character developments. When we first meet Lewis, Lewis is obviously Cleo's child best friend. They always study together. On top of that, if Cleo needs anything from him, if Cleo asks anything, like a question maybe, he'll jump at the chance to try to help figure it out. He'll do it for her sake, and he's doing that because he loves her, and that continues on throughout the entire show, basically. Because no matter what happens between him and Cleo, he's always going to be there for Cleo no matter what. So they keep that least of that character development within him. In season 2, they switch it up a bit, but eventually it becomes healthy. So from the very beginning, it's not a codependency. I mean, it makes sense. They have not dated anybody, and they are childhood friends. So there's nothing wrong with it in season 1. He also is relegated to the guy that always helps and comes in when there's a problem, or he's the science guy who always has to run tests. And they keep having him do that until episode 24, when he realized having to analyze everything is what the girls and him have an issue with in their friendship. One of the issues. To be fair and honest, um, Lewis's issue in the friendship is that Lewis does not know how to be a friend without doing research, analyzing everything, and trying to run tests and try to figure things out in a scientific, logical way, instead of just going with life itself and magic and just letting things happen. He has to know what he's dealing with. So, from what I can understand from that, is that Lewis doesn't know how to function without logic. If something he can't understand doesn't have any logic to it, he wants to try to fix it. And that's where I believe by season 2, the codependency kicked in when he had to deal with their new powers, and everything became weird once him and Cleo broke up, and he tried to just be the guy that came in and helped, but he even deviated from the group because he had spent so much time with Charlotte, despite the fact not having any romantic feelings for her like she had for him. He distanced himself because it was hard for him to be near Cleo, but that still didn't stop him from jumping at the chance to try to be there for the girls and help them. But that resulted in him believing that they always needed his help, instead of trying to encouraging them into trying to figure it out for themselves when they were trying to do so. It seemed like to me that when they did do this, it hurt him. Like, he felt like he didn't have a place in the group. So it wasn't that, people who wanted Lewis to be a merman were trying to say that people like me who wanted him to be a merman. But, like, from what people saw in his conversation with Cleo when they were breaking up, that they got this idea that he shouldn't have to be a merman to be a part of the group. I think a lot of people fail to understand Lewis' character, that he thinks that him being the guy that comes in and fix everything and has to save them is what makes him a part of the group. So when that's being taken away from him in season 2, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to function. He gets upset. On top of that, it hurts his feelings when they don't need his help. So it kind of baffles me that people kind of make jokes about the fact how the girls try to get some independence and figure things out for themselves, that they end up having needed his help anyway. I think what people fail to realize in that situation, that dynamic, the girls are trying to figure things out for themselves so they don't have to always depend on him. Because depend on Lewis creates this toxic codependency where he would need to be codependent of them and they need to be codependent of him. If anybody's ever seen the TV show Charmed, you would know that the charmed ones gain this same codependency when Leo is their white lighter, because they refuse to accept another white lighter. They always expect him to show up and help, and he's the first person they call before anything. So, like, seeing that toxic codependency that went on literally for 8 years after they found out he was a white lighter just tells you that the girls were making the right call. They were not always codependent on him, because we saw how that affected Leo when he couldn't protect his family and be there for them. It affected him mentally, and it resulted in him like literally going nuts, like losing his fucking mind. So when we see the girls try to get Lewis to accept the fact that they don't always need his help and they want to figure things out for themselves, it leaves Lewis in a weird moment because he doesn't know how to be himself without being needed. So this is an issue that's carried on from season 1 to season 2. Lewis needs to be needed. He needs things to be answered in a logical way with a manual and everything else to try to figure it out. So he is up for getting the lesson that Miss Chatham told him in the 24th episode of season 1, that he just needs to be their friend. So Lewis doesn't know how to do that in season 1. He does not actually figure that out. It seems like he figures that out. It seems like that's what he's doing, but he hasn't. He just decided to just not put his input into everything in the last 2 episodes. So when we get to season 2, we see him have to learn that once Cleo and him break up, because Cleo has to learn how to figure things out without Lewis and figure out who she is identity-wise as a mermaid and gain back her confidence and her resilience. So Lewis has to figure out how to just be their friend. And that's hard, okay? Yes, he struggles. By the time the show stops his codependency, it is by the 13th episode. And it's not like the girls don't appreciate his help. They tell him numerous of times that they do. On top of that, they show it through their actions. But in that 13th episode, Lewis said to the girls, okay, you did this without my help. No, Ricky corrected him and said, no, Lewis, we did this despite your help. That means that she acknowledged that he helped them, but also that the help that he was trying to give them was not helping. So they had figured out a plan B solution. They took that and were explaining to the show and the fans themselves that the girls recognize Lewis's help. But when Lewis helps, it doesn't always help them. It makes things worse. I literally called this out in the 24th episode when a lot of people were getting mad at them in the comments on other videos about getting mad at him for what he did in that episode, that he was just trying to help. But I think people fail to realize he was, instead of just focusing on that, did people even ask the question as to why the girls were upset? Like, everyone failed to realize that the girls did not ask him to do this. They were literally more focused on the dance, and he decided to do this on his own. I think a lot of the times when people say that the girls treat him like garbage, they fail to understand and fail to realize, and I don't believe you guys are watching the show at all, that they don't always ask for his help when he does things that's supposedly supposed to help them. He volunteers, even if they don't ask for it or tell him that he shouldn't do this. He's doing this to himself. So this has actually been a issue since season 1, except nobody noticed. Like until season 2. Even then, no one noticed. Like I think I had somebody comment in the 23rd episode that they felt that the girl should have asked for help from someone else and they didn't have to always need Lewis. And I comment to say that, yeah, I miss Chatham. If she was there, la da da. This was when I had reviewed season 2 the second time. And it was the 3rd episode that this person told me this because of the whole diary situation. But in all honesty and truth, the girls don't ask for his help. Like, we find this out real quick in the first time we meet him in the first episode. Literally. Cleo asked Lewis what he knew about mermaids, and he said nothing, and she said, okay, thanks. Later on, when she talks to him, he had done the research on it, and she literally, out her own mouth, said that she didn't ask him to do the research. She didn't ask him to do this, but he said, I know you didn't ask, but, I thought, why not? So that's the thing. When the girls are going through something or when they have something else going on, Lewis jumps at the chance to try to do something that he believes is to help them. Which, yes, I understand. A lot of people feel like, yeah, that's a good thing. He's willing to help. That's amazing. But here's the problem. When the girls do not reciprocate the same energy that y'all think is a positive thing, y'all get mad at them. But you fail to understand they're not asking him to do this. So that's like a literal issue that goes on with Lewis. And I'm glad that they finally resolved that issue in his character development. Because he had to understand that he could not always be there for them. And he stopped doing that. He stopped doing that in the 13th episode, and he let the girls take the wheel. He let them be able to figure things out for themselves. Yes, he comes in and helps from time to time. And once he's given them the air to like figure things out for themselves, they are able to actually not be bothered when he comes and helps them out because he's giving them a chance to breathe. Another thing that carries on from season 1 to episode 2 is that this love relationship that he has with Cleo. And it starts off with, obviously, he's her friend. He has a crush on her, and they won't, and they get together. They go through a honeymoon phase. Okay, well, the relationship starts to take a turn for the worse when we get to the 2nd episode of season 2, when we see that Lewis is showing toxic traits. But it's shown in a way to where people would confuse it with him helping her and not him being controlling of her every single thing. That he becomes suffocating for her and he doesn't give her a chance to breathe. He doesn't give her a chance to process everything. He just expects her to be okay with everything and says that he's always going to help. And it affects her in a negative way. She dumps him, get flack from the fans, by the way, and Lewis is hurt by this. But for some reason, for someone to be that hurt to get broken up, it seems like Lewis and Cleo are able to still have communication. It's just awkward. So he has to figure out how to be her friend on top of the fact that he's still in love with her. And it eventually comes from out of a toxic type dynamic to something positive where he can still love her from a distance and still be her friend without it meaning anything. Hanging out with her, being at just that cafe with her, hugging her, smiling at her, like it's not anything bad. So then by the time that Charlotte is the reason for their breakup and he's able to break from that toxic relationship, which we're going to talk about that sooner or later, he's able to get back with Cleo, but able to get back with her with a new resolve. He knows how to be a boyfriend, a friend, and he also knows when to let her have space. So their relationship is healthier for it, because now that they've gone through that process of dating and they know the problems in the situation that they did not talk out and figure out from Cleo's end and his end, they're able to have a positive relationship. So the same thing for like Rick and Zane. Rick and Zane were toxic in the first season. And by the second season, they tried the whole approach of making it healthy, and they actually had them talk out a few of their issues. Now we'll see when we get to season 3 that there's other issues, but the issues that they were dealing with before were actually already resolved. These other issues they got are brand new issues. Cleo and Lewis in season 3 don't have any issues. When they actually have to separate, they don't break up. They're still together. They have a long distance relationship. This is why Cleo refuses to get with Ryan. And a lot of people kind of confuse the whole situation with Cleo and Ryan, so I'll talk about that when we get to season 3. But it's good to note that Lewis and Cleo, after everything they've been through, have a resolve that makes it easier for them to have that long distance relationship, and we'll talk more into that in season 3. So at least those two problems for Lewis got fixed. There's a new problem that Lewis had to fix that resulted in him being too trusting. We see this happen with Dr. Denham when he trusts her enough to think that she wouldn't be manipulating him, and it results in him causing chain reactions. So we've already talked about Cleo's, Zane's, and Ricky's chain reactions. So let's talk about Lewis's chain reactions, because he does this shit twice. He has the same chain reaction issue. Lewis actually using Cleo's toenail to do research in Dr. Denham's lab is what led her to be suspicious of the DNA that he had. And when she found the same similar DNA in the last 2 episodes, she was able to figure out that Lewis found DNA of mermaids, exposure of mermaids, and she literally went through hell and high water to try to make a freaking profit off of this, to the point where she was even threatening to hurt the girls. So Lewis's blind trusting nature of someone that showed interest in him led to the girls getting exposed. And Zane was not the only fault for that. Lewis also was at fault for that. So when we get to season 2, the same thing happens. Because Charlotte is showing interest in the things that he likes and into him, he thinks that she's being his friend, and when he finds out that's not the case and he ends up being made out to be a betrayer, he has to prove himself to the girls again. He ends up falling to this deep dark web of misery. So long story short, Charlotte is domestically abusive. She abuses Lewis mentally, emotionally, and verbally. Verbally meaning she constantly gaslights him, simply by pretending to care about his interests and like literally trying to make it seem like the problem that he's going through is actually his friends, not himself. Trying to make it seem like he's not doing anything wrong in his friendship, when in reality he has this obvious codependency on them. That is a problem. So he ends up falling into that trap, and she's able to trick him into a relationship. This in turn turns her into gaslighting him into feeling bad for wanting to have a relationship with his friends. So I'm going to break that down in my true meaning video, but like, if you are a person that's ever been in a relationship with someone that tells you that you need to cut some people out because they're too toxic for your relationship or something like that, this is a person that wants to isolate you. Anyone in your relationship that tells you that you need to remove yourself from someone in your family, someone that tells you that you should not be in a relationship with your family, like your children, your parents, your siblings, your friends. This is a person that wants you to be codependent on them. They want you to narcissistically and then through some form of entitlement only focus on them and their needs. That is a toxic person. That is the biggest toxic trait in any relationship. Do not be in a relationship with someone that tells you to cut people out of your life. If that's not your decision, it's coming from them. They're telling you that. It's their decision. That person wants to control you and they are a controlling person. That is someone you need to end it with. Um, but Lewis is a prime example as to one issue that we have in society. Now, I'm not saying that that means that every single woman that complains about something should be considered that she's just being a daffodil and she's toxic and she's a feminist. If anybody thinks that, get the fuck off my channel. Get the fuck on with that. So, what I'm saying is that women and men both are capable of domestic abuse. Like, domestic abuse knows no gender. But a lot of people fail to understand that domestic abuse is not always physical. A lot of people see a physical altercation between a man and woman and think, oh, domestic abuse when a woman throws a drink at him. She's abusive. No, that's not abusive. First and foremost, the way that domestic abuse works is that you are manipulated into trusting someone that pretends to care about you. So they're manipulating you into thinking that it's safe to be with them. They love you. They care about you. And they want what's best for you. Then that's when the emotional and mental manipulation come in. And mentally, Charlotte was like telling Lewis all the right things that he wanted to hear. She was using validation for him to try to make him feel safe enough to where she apparently is acting as if she's not bossing him around and telling him what to do when that's not the case. So emotionally, she's making him feel that she actually cares about him and his interests more than Cleo does, when Cleo is clearly and obviously a girly girl and Charlotte is just some preppy girl. So if Cleo is a girly girls are not into science. They're into makeup and fashion and other stuff. They're not into all that, I'm sorry to say this, nerd shit. I hate to tell you guys that, but I'm sorry. So when you end up, and you know what, it might not be all girly girls, but like most of them are not into that. So once she gets she wants and she starts a relationship with him, this is when the gaslighting starts. This is when she starts making him feel bad for wanting to hang out with his friends, because I don't give a fuck what none of y'all say. It may have been his ex, but y'all fail to realize they've been friends since 5 years old. So the whole because they used to date thing is a problem for y'all. If that's the case, you should not be in a relationship. Because if you're going to have an issue with somebody that is friends with someone that they used to date, but they were already friends before they dated, you got the problem, not them. So put yourself in therapy. But that's all the cause of Lewis being too trusting. That's why he was so easily caught up in domestic abuse. What I hate about it is that a lot of people feel more sorry for Charlotte and kind of are mad at Lewis, despite the fact he's the victim, and try to act like Charlotte did not abuse him. And you're basically got people saying that it was actually Cleo that abused him. I think people have dedicated comments and videos to Cleo doing this. And I feel like this is a form of victim shaming. And I don't think that anybody who apparently has either not witnessed domestic abuse, has not experienced domestic abuse, and somebody who has not know someone who's going through domestic abuse should sit there and try to talk about something that they do not understand. Like, if you don't understand how domestic abuse works, you should not even talk about it, nor should you make accounts to say that you know who's the abusive person. As for someone who has witnessed someone they care about going through domestic abuse, I am sorry to inform you, but Cleo is not being domestically abusive. Charlotte is. So I have more knowledge of this than any of you do. So no one's going to try to make it seem like that is not the case. But Lewis actually learns this lesson that he can't be so like literally trusting of anyone that pretends that they actually care about the things that he's into. Now, whether or not that this lesson is relearned in season 3, we'll find out in season 3. But with his character development, he went from being the guy that always is there to figure things out, who let his love for Cleo drive him to always put himself in certain positions, whether or not he was asked to, and the guy who had this growing codependency from the girls since like childhood from Cleo. He ends up at season 1 still having these issues until we get to season 2. He starts it off and it's toxic, and he has to learn how to find himself outside of this stuff. That as a result, we see Lewis by the end able to overcome this codependency before the end of season 2. We see him actually grow a backbone and learn how to stick up for himself and not be a fool that falls for everything and anything. And lastly, we see him have a healthier type relationship with Cleo, not only as her boyfriend, but as being her just friend as well. So let's talk about personality. There's nothing negative about Lewis's personality. His personality is that he's very calm. He's not a person that likes conflict. He is very supportive. The only thing that I can say that's toxic about his personality is that he tends to allow his imagination of things run him wild, or he apparently is a know-it-all who thinks he knows more than anybody else, and that's a problem, and he stopped doing that too. So personality wise, there's no actual honest negative thing. So moving on from him having a story outside of other characters, his biggest story from season 1 and 2 is obviously his codependency problem, his issue with like Cleo being used to try to fuel him into his need to help them constantly. So he overcomes that, something that Max didn't with the original mermaids. And then lastly, his naive trust in a lot of people. But those are like 3 big storylines he goes through season 1 and 2. And then lastly, he does have a domestic abuse storyline that he is fallen into. So yes, he does have a story outside his friendship with the girls. So yeah, he does in fact have a story outside. So if he was only his scenes that didn't involve the girls, it would be something to watch. Now let's talk about his behaviors. Now Lewis does have positive and toxic behaviors. One of his positive behaviors that you can trust him to be honest. He is also a supporting friend, and on top of that, Lewis is an all-around good guy. There's nothing any bad you can say about him. Now his negative ones, by the way, obviously yes, is his naive trust, his codependency, and also his know-it-all personality. But that's really it. That stuff is like very straightforward for people. There really is no need for no discussion of details with that one. Let's talk about his relationships. Now we don't know nothing about his relationship with his 5 brothers and his damn parents, because we only meet one brother and he ain't there very long, so we can kind of guess that they're okay. They have a good solid relationship. Now his relationship with Emma is that they are complete equals. They both are like perfectionists. They both always do things a certain way. So of course they mesh well. Of course Emma doesn't always argue with him. So that makes sense. They're like one and the same person. They might as well just be brother and sister. Tail twins at this damn point. Him and Ricky have a complicated relationship. They have like a sibling rivalry with each other where they go back and forth. They both got 2 different interests. So if you know what I'm talking about, look at Cleo and Kale's relationship. So it goes from being complicated, and then when we get to season 2, they learn how to just be friends and talk out their issues and problems, and they actually end up having a solid, good relationship with each other. His relationship with Cleo is obviously a friends to lovers type relationship that goes through their honeymoon phase, that gets toxic at the beginning until Cleo immediately ends it once it starts showing signs of that. Up to them learning how to be just friends without letting their feelings drive their friendship. That once they figure that out, they could actually have a friendship outside their friendship, you know? And his relationship with like characters like Zane, obviously they become enemies to friends, so they're like the typical frenemies type relationship. Then we see his relationship with all like any other characters. Obviously Nate is his bully, so he hates him. Miriam is just some girl who he's never had to like have any no more than like a sentence or two with. Tiffany's just that weird girl that I believe had a crush on him at one point. And the biggest thing with everybody else is that he's fine with everybody else. Obviously, Cleo's dad is protective of his daughter, so of course they don't get on a good start from time to time, but they do figure things out. So his relationship with Charlotte, obviously as a domestic one, it's a domestic act against a man from a female, which if I'm being honest, Oshima was the first show I watched, which was Charmed. So my first time seeing a domestic relationship is with him and in H2O. So I think, in my humble opinion, until I see season 3 of Charmed again, Lewis is the only male character in the early 2000s that I know of that actually had a relationship with a female that was actually abusive. And I think H2O was the first show I saw actually attempt this and do it perfectly to the point where people still today, even in 2025, do not think that it's domestic abuse. And I just do not understand. Because I believe, like, by 2025, we ought to know what the fuck this is. The fact that we can't still associate that as domestic abuse is fucking insane. Now, so, with all, now, on to the last one. Lewis's clothing style, obviously, I'm not doing this to be mean, but Lewis is dressing up like a typical fisherman slash nerd. He's always wearing shorts. They're always like these brown shorts that like he wears white shirts all the time. Like I think his color palette is like browns, whites, and plaid. That is his color palette. He always wears a plain white t-shirt with a plaid overshirt with some shorts. He's always wearing his hat. He wears his glasses from time to time. So he really, when Lewis is actually dresses up, he wears this white t-shirt with these long blue G pants. So we see him wear those, especially when he's like with Charlotte or Cleo for that matter, when he actually attempts to dress up. But like most of the time, Lewis is literally dressed up in his fishing gear. When he's with Charlotte. But with Cleo, I think he actually takes the time to dress up when he's trying to impress her, or when he actually like literally puts his clothes into account. I think it was only like twice that he actually dressed up for Charlotte. But with Cleo, he dressed up like more times than that. I can't really remember off the top of my dome with their outfits. But I believe that that's his main color palette. It's like murky cream colors and white. So with all this put together, Lewis actually is my favorite character because I like the fact that he is a supportive, not only friend but a boyfriend. His willingness and determination, even though yes, it is a codependency problem and I don't like it, but the fact that he actually's there for them without them even asking. It's like makes him a fucking ride or die. And a ride or die character is always a good character in my book. So I don't know about everybody else. Maybe y'all feel like, oh, he needs to stop doing that by season 2. But like I'm like this. If you want a true friend, you want a friend that's gonna come there for you no matter what you say, and he's always down for a fight. You clearly missing out because I would love a friend like this. Also, Lewis actually like being there for Cleo and still loving her despite everything proves that they're in game, because if they were not meant to be together, he would have stopped loving her and fell in love with Charlotte, but that never happened. So that showed that it was not him not wanting to move on, it's that he could not move on because his heart knew what he wanted. And I respect him for that. He did tell Charlotte no many times. He did push her away. He was in this resolve that he loved Cleo, and he was honest about that. He wasn't fake about that. He didn't lead her on. So I respect him in that too. Also, like, as much as I would have loved to him be a merman, him being just an all around simple character is a great too. In fact, it's amazing. Like a guy that in his free time is like the scientific person, like he's really smart and he always knows what to do when the time needs for it, and he takes the dedication and time to figure things out. But for him to be a person that fishes in his free time, like I hate what they try to do to him in season 3, and they didn't do this earlier. But like we come to find out in season 3 that Lewis is actually good at fucking golf, and he plays the drums. He's been playing the drums for years. So I'm like, damn, that would have been nice to know. But I can understand why they did that in season 3. But I still wish they had brought up the golf thing in season 2, because I've been like, this dude is not only just a scientist, but he is also a fisherman. But this man plays golf and he plays drums. Like, if anybody got any question as to why Cleo would not move on and date anybody else even after Lewis left, like for anybody that would wonder why she would do that, you must be joking. You must be out of your fucking mind. This man is a smart ass scientist. He is good at golf. A pro, mind you. He's a pro. He's a pro at playing drums. And he's a damn fisherman. And her dad is a fisherman. He's literally carrying on her family legacy. Fishing is in her family. Like, you are mad if you think he he wouldn't be the number one guy in her book. Compared to someone like Nate, compared to someone like Ryan, are you kidding me? If you are not team Cleo and Lewis, there's something wrong with you. You need to get your brain checked. But that's like literally the gist of it. That's all I got for you guys today. So I hope you enjoyed the video. That deeper meaning video will come out after I've done season 3, because season 3 plays a part in that as well, and you won't see that until like September 30th. So until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful day and have a blessed day. If no one told you this today, I'm telling you, I love you. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So without further ado, goodbye, guys.